Welcome back, everybody. It's Federation TV. We carry on talking sport in the Western Cape. Last year, you will remember, of course, cycling was on the show on a number of occasions. We spoke about track cycling. A lot of the cycling guys were busy with Zwift as they were busy preparing. In fact, we got a world champion in virtual cycling. And things have been going particularly well. Of course, difficult at the moment, difficult conditions. But one of the codes, and you remember we spoke about BMX cycling last year, and one of the codes is in fact BMX. And we've got the commissioner for Western Cape, at least the national commissioner for BMX, who's of course involved with BMX in the Western Cape. We've got Garth Cornell on the line. I've got to understand all these things, but Garth, welcome to Sport Federation TV.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Guys, first time for us to have you on the show. We spoke last week, as I just mentioned in the intro. We spoke last year, in fact, about BMX in the Western Cape, and we saw some fantastic pictures, and we saw some great videos, some really exciting stuff. How's BMX doing in South Africa?
Yeah, so this is amazing for us. At the moment, we've seen an incredible increase in the freestyle side of BMX.
Yeah.
I've obviously been involved with the BMX racing since the early 80s, but now they're wanting to introduce the freestyle scene to the racing side of it. So we will be holding a dirt jump competition at the Nationals and at the Western Cape National in Hermanus. We'll be holding a dirt jump competition there. And we'll also be having a freestyle competition, which is more street related.
So let's just, Garth, just pause there, educate me a little bit. When you were talking about freestyle BMX, what does that mean? What is freestyle BMX?
So freestyle BMX is the trick component to BMX riding. Not racing, but it's doing tricks over either over dirt jumps or on a skate park, concrete skate park, or even riding street, doing tricks in the streets.
Now, when you talk about combining racing and freestyling, how does that work? Does that mean that you're now having to do funny jumps and things in the race?
No, so it'll be held totally separate from the racing. So what normally happens on a race day at a national, you run 3 motos, then you have a break before your finals, and in the break we're going to be running the actual dirt jump competitions. It'll be a separate set of dirt jumps built specifically for the competition.
Have you had to make a lot of adjustments for your athletes in planning around this? We know a lot of the other sport codes, they're allowed to train, but of course training without spectators and under very strict conditions.
So the freestyle scene in Cape Town has always been very underground and quiet. Yeah. So the riders are all riding. They always have been riding. COVID or not.
Well, I suppose also from a sport perspective, it's maybe a little bit easier for the BMX cyclists because you're out in the mountain, you're not making contact with anybody, or maybe not in the mountain, as you said, your freestyling's even in the street, but you're not in contact with someone. You're alone with your bike, so it's one of those sports, I suppose, that can think out the box and take advantage of that space. But let's move away from that part of the topic. What I actually want to know is more about BMXing, and you mentioned the Hermanus. Now, I've seen some of the photographs, I've seen some of the videos. I think even when I was a kid, I used to fiddle around with BMX myself. But when we look at some of these photographs, I mean, what the guys get up to is like real daredevil stuff. They're jumping high and they're racing down the mountain. It really does look very exciting.
Yeah, no, absolutely it is. And it's incredible if you think about it, because you're going out of the gate, you're pedaling as fast as you can down, and you're hitting a dirt jump, and most of the time it's a step up or a double at about 60 kilometers an hour. And with the modern BMX racing, your feet are clipped in. So yeah, no, there's a huge amount of skill required.
Tell us a little bit about the tracks. Now, you mentioned that you've got an event coming up sometime during the year in Hermanus. I'm assuming that there must be quite a lot of preparation that goes into setting up a track like that.
Yeah, so Hermanus, Rick's done an amazing job. He's was obviously given some land, and they've been building this track, and it's been getting better and better every time we see it. There's they're just busy rebuilding the Kryfontein BMX track, and there's also one going up in Paarl. So the whole BMX racing in general is definitely going to be getting better.
Talking about the actual facility itself, or the track itself, what is it that makes a good track?
So all tracks are different. They're all individual. They have different lengths, different types of jumps, different sizes of jumps, and the skill level is obviously different for every track.
Right. And how are we doing from a competitive perspective? I mean, I know we've had a couple of our athletes go from South Africa. They're in fact living overseas now. I think Stefan Garlicki is one of our athletes that maybe is competing overseas, and he's in fact been on the show with us before. But we've got a couple of athletes that are competing, or maybe I also shouldn't be getting my mountain biking and BMXing confused. But how are we doing from a competitive point of view?
Well, so I'm not too clued up on the racing side, but from the freestyle side, this is going to be totally new for us. It's the first year we've actually been asked to do this officially.
Yes.
Because of the Olympics that's being held. Bmx Freestyle is now being included in the Olympics.
Right.
So this is why we. Yeah, absolutely. So this is why we now need to actually crown a king of dirt or a king of freestyle at the end of the year, so that they can start qualifying for the Olympics.
How do you crown a king of the dirt or a king of BMXing in South Africa? Is there a ranking system, or do they compete on a regular basis? How would they? Have you worked it out yet? I know it's early days for you.
Yeah, it's still all very early days. But what I foresee is that at each national, we will obviously be running these competitions. You will have to do at least 2 of the national competitions in order to qualify for points at the end of the year. And the rider with the most points is crowned the king of dirt.
So the big thing here, really, if I see this right, is, I mean, one of the big things we have to jump on here, the fact is that your sport now, BMX Freestyle, is in the Olympics. It's an Olympic sport.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. No, it's extremely exciting. We've and we're taking sort of little stepping stones. You know, we're taking tiny steps, but it's only going to grow from here.
Tell us, Garth, just on a final note, Hermanus Championships, are there any other BMX championships on the cards for maybe even later in the year?
So there's 3 nationals. They have a national in every province, in the 3 provinces, the 3 main provinces per year. So they will be having these dirt jump competitions and the freestyle comps in Natal, in Gauteng, and in Cape Town.
Well, Garth, I think we'll leave it at that. We're looking forward to that. Just a reminder then for us, the date of the champs. I suppose at this stage there's no spectators allowed.
I'm actually not too sure about that.
We have to see. Yeah.
I'm sure they would allow some spectators, but possibly not a full. You know, with BMX, you're out on the track and the track is wide, so the spectators are spread apart and they're not on top of each other. So I don't think there should be a problem.
Garth, we'll leave it at that, and hopefully when that event happens, we'll get lots of photographs and lots of videos, and we'll see who the Western Cape, if I've got it right, who the Western Cape Freestyle BMX Dirt King is.
That's correct. Yeah, that'll be great.
Thanks, Garth. There we go, folks. Garth Cornell, the commissioner for Freestyle BMX in South Africa, and of course taking care of things in the Western Cape. And isn't that fantastic news that we now have BMX Freestyle as a sport, although it's been around for a long time, but it's now structured and it's organized, and they're going to the Olympics. Of course, we have to still wait and see what happens with the Olympics in 2021, but shortly after that, well, let's say 4 years after that, we hope to see a South African at the Olympics on a BMX doing freestyle. Folks, we'll take an ad break. When we come back from the break, we'll carry on talking about sport in the Western Cape. Back in a sec.